reading for today? Can you hear me well? Yes? Yes. Okay. It's James chapter 3, verses from 13 to 18. Wisdom from above. Are any of you wise or sensible? Then show it by living right and be humble and wise in everything you do. But if your heart is full of bitter jealousy and selfishness, don't brag or lie to cover up the truth. That kind of wisdom doesn't come from above. It is earthly and selfish and comes from the devil himself. Whenever people are jealous or selfish, they cause trouble and do all sorts of cruel things. But the wisdom that comes from above leads us to be pure, friendly, gentle, sensible, kind, helpful, genuine, and sincere. When peacemakers plant seeds of peace, they will harvest justice.
Amen.
Thank you.
You're going to hear it again. But it's true. James is really my favorite letter in the New Testament. All right? It really is. When I first discovered James and tried to share it with some other people that really weren't too fond of Scripture, because they had have a lot of emphasis on the Mosaic Law, and they were kind of turned off by Scripture. And there are people like that today, right? I think we all know that. I introduced them to James. No, I was in a church that was not what you call a Bible carrying church when I first started out in ministry. And I was an intern. And so the minister said to me, what would you like to do for the pre-church service? And I said, I'd like to do a Bible study. And he laughed himself silly. He said, nobody would show up for a Bible study. I said, well, that's what I do. That's what I'd like to do. And he had some kind of a psychological thing. I had 35 people in my Bible study, and he had like 8 people in his psychology group. People were starving to really open it up again and read Scripture from maybe a different perspective. And so I thought, I know what I'm going to do to turn them on. I'm going to give them the letter of James. And you know, everyone there said to me, I don't ever remember reading that. Yeah, I never was introduced to that when I was growing up. I said, well, gee, that's too bad. So we were reading James. They were so excited about James. They thought, wow, this guy's right on. Now, Martin Luther, you know, the theologian way back there in the 1500s, didn't like James because he saw that James was conflicting with Paul. Paul always talked about justification by faith, okay? And James said, you can't separate them. They both go together. If you want to know what my faith is, watch me. See what I do. And these folks that read that went, whoa, this is good. I like this. And in this particular passage, I think James is so relevant to us today. Because when we are together in a gathering of any kind, whether it be in our home, work, the community, church, we need to come together with a sense of humility. We really do. There's nothing wrong with being humble. I mean, we don't have to brag about ourselves, and that's what he's talking about. We don't have to go say, oh, I am so great. Oh, I'm so wonderful. Like some of the pastors that they live for preaching so that the people after they come out the door say, oh, I was so inspired. You ever heard that before? Oh, he was so inspiring. You know, if I can get up here and talk and make people think, oh, I'm happy with that. You don't have to get inspired, okay? Sometimes I don't feel that inspired. I do my best to be able to share with you what I have learned in my life. And your life may have taken a different direction. So you probably learned a lot of things that I haven't learned. And we can all learn from each other, can't we? He talks at the very end about justice. And that is a word you find a lot, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I looked it up and read some examples. A just society is a society that is fair to everyone. It doesn't matter how rich or poor, or where you live, or what language you speak. The society is fair to everyone. Not too many places are that way. Even in families, right? Especially in families. So often I hear parents say, oh, I love all my children equally. No, you don't. You love them for different reasons. Because your children have different characteristics, right? They're all different. You love Maria because she's so kind and helpful and things like that. And you love Sam because he is a go-getter and he really takes charge and makes things that happen. It doesn't mean you don't love them, you know, one more than the other. It's that you love them for different reasons. See, you don't love them equally. But in some families it's a little different than that even. How many of you will admit you're old enough to remember the Smothers Brothers? Yeah, Mom liked you what? Mom liked you better, right? Often parents, they don't want to admit it, have one kid they like a little better than the other. And often it's of the opposite. If you have a boy and a girl, it's of the opposite gender. I know how many men, oh, I want a son, you know, we're going to go and play football, or we're going to go. No, they make a fool out of themselves, out of their daughters. Love their little girl, right? The little princess. And mothers, guys know how to work their mothers. I know that because I have 3 sons. Oh, Mom. Can I? Will you? Yes. I know. That's why every girl deserves to have a mother who will set her straight. She knows what girls try to get away with. And the same thing with fathers. They know the stuff that guys try to pull on Mom. Yeah, they do. So that's why it's kind of nice if you have both sexes around, or somebody in the neighborhood at least that is concerned with the children so they don't get away with stuff by being kissy-kissy to the opposite gender. I think of a story that I heard a little while ago about a mom who had a son. It was her only son. Her husband had died, and boy, did he know how to work her. Oh, gee. He was something else. And he knew how to manipulate her and get money out of her and things like that. Unfortunate for him, she met a gentleman, fell in love, got married. Guess what? That all came to a halting stop there. Because her new husband, he knew, he really did. And when it comes to justice, like it says, if those who sow seeds of peace will have justice. That's something that is in process, isn't it? You know, at the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, it says, with liberty and justice for all. Is there liberty for everybody? Not really. There are a lot of people, especially if you're poor. You don't have much liberty because you can't afford to go anywhere, do anything, or have very many opportunities. And justice means that everyone is treated fairly and equally. You see everyone being treated fairly and equally? See, this is what we can do as people of faith. We can't depend on government or institutions even, schools, hospitals, whatever. We have got to do it ourselves in our own lives. When we meet people, I don't care where they come from, or who they are, or how much money they have. When we treat people with dignity, it will come back as something very wonderful, because they have met someone in their lives who cares about them. And I've seen this to poor people on the street. I've seen this to children of color. I've seen this to people particularly who don't have the resources that most of us have. And just by being kind and listening and open, that is how we create justice. And we do it ourselves. We don't depend on somebody else. If you're going to sit around in your seat and say, well, waiting for a just society, it's not going to happen. We have to do it ourselves. If we see somebody walking up the street there and asking for a drink of water, what should we really do? Give them water. Do you remember where Jesus said, when you were hungry, I gave you something to eat. And when you were thirsty, I gave you something to drink. If we all can do that ourselves, not worried about what our next door neighbor's doing, not what our aunt or uncle is doing, but what we are doing, we will truly make a difference. We will have a much better world. And we will truly be following in the footsteps of Jesus Christ. Amen.